I'm Melissa Adamson. I work for ACT-IAC. I'm the industry chair of the Advanced Mobility Working Group.
David Yang, the vice chair for the Advanced Mobility Working Group. I work at ICF.
We'd like to thank you to the second Mobile Applications Fair. We're really excited. We have, once again, we have record number of exhibitors. We have more awards to give out this time, and we actually have also a surprise award. We just wanted to take a quick minute to thank our sponsors, that's Accenture and ACT-IAC. And with that, I want to introduce Lisa Mitnick. She's the Managing Director of Accenture Digital for Healthcare, and she's going to introduce our keynote speaker today.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here with all of you, and I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing Dr. David Bray, CIO of the FCC. And I'm going to share a couple fun facts that he shared with me that you might not find on his bio. The first one he shared with me is that he hit his head when he was 1 year old. And that's probably why he is so incredibly brilliant. Second, he led the bioterrorism and bioresponse program for the CDC following 9/11. And actually at 9 a.m., on September 11th, 2001, he briefed the CIA and the FBI on what to do in the event of a bioterrorism event. Pretty heady stuff, huh? In 2009, he was deployed to Afghanistan and was serving our government to think differently about military and humanitarian efforts. That's pretty exciting stuff. And then from 2012 to 2013, he spent a year and a half reviewing R&D efforts of U.S. Intelligence Committee with 12 congressionally appointed commissioners. So let's fast forward. He received the National Intelligence Exceptional Achievement Medal in 2013, and the team he supervised received the National Intelligence Meritorious Unit Citation that same year. He was also one of 13 individuals across the entire federal workforce recognized for the Arthur S. Fleming Award for Public Service Leadership. In August 2013, he assumed the role of Chief Information Officer for the FCC, and he was selected to serve as a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and as a visiting associate for the Cybersecurity Working Group on Culture at the University of Oxford in 2014. He has also been named one of the Fed 100 for 2015 and the most social CIOs in government today by Forbes and the Huffington Post, tweeting as @FCC_CIO. So to get into the social fun today, we ask you to tweet #mobile and tweet also ACT-IAC. Okay, without further ado, Dr. David Bray.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that's a very humbling intro. I often just say I fell on my head. That's about all I did. What we're going to do today is momentous in the sense that we are thinking about how we can keep ahead of the exponential change in our world. Public service has always been hard. It's particularly hard when we're experiencing exponential change. And so, in 20 minutes or less, in fact, I'm going to try and condense it down to 15 minutes or less, I'm going to try and encapsulate the spirit of public service and the Internet of Everything in 15 minutes or less. So, to begin with, first, what do we mean by public service? Well, I actually use that word intentionally because it's about the public first and foremost. How do we interact with the public? How do we provide services? And the reality is we're all members of the public. Second, it's about public-private partnerships. Third, it's about government professionals working together as a triangle as to how we actually achieve what we want to do as a nation and what we want to do as a world. So, let's go back a little bit as to where we all began. Well, 1969, that was the state of the internet back in 1969. 6 nodes in the southwest of the United States. Fast forward to 1982, now we see the United States is getting connected. We have transatlantic, trans-Pacific. But it's when we get to 1993 that things get really interesting. Now remember, the World Wide Web had not been born yet. This was still the internet in the days of Archie and Gopher, for those of you that remember that. The United States, good news, is pretty much connected. Europe's getting connected, but the rest of the world still has a ways to go. By the time we get to 2007, it is now such connectivity going on, and this is just ground connections, not alone mobile connections, that we can no longer show borders of countries. And by the time we get to 2010, they gave up trying to produce a map showing the internet connectivity by the world. That was the state of the internet in 2010, no longer showing a map of the Earth. So now, the Internet of Everything. I use that word intentionally. Why? Because the Internet of Things is already here. How many of you have a mobile phone? I'm hoping at least 90% of the audience does, given this is a mobile app event. But that said, you probably have a mobile phone, you may have a laptop, you may have a Fitbit or other devices. Those are already the Internet of Things. I use the word Internet of Everything because what we're really talking about is with everything you have. Your car, your refrigerator, your appliances, your home, your clothes even are connected to the internet. And what does that mean for our world? And that's what makes this event so important, because mobile is becoming ubiquitous. Mobile is becoming the internet of everything, and we need to start thinking today about how that impacts public service. So, with that said, there are huge opportunities and huge challenges. This was actually a map of Earth from space taken in 1995. Points of light. And I highlight that because when I was making these slides, I actually lost internet connectivity to my house for about 3 days. There was a problem actually with the provider. And so it raises a question that while we are embracing mobile, while we're embracing going towards ubiquitous internet, what does happen if we lose connectivity? And particularly if we're relying on that to be public service. These are questions we need to ask. So, let's confront the average internet minute. The average internet minute has about 204 million emails sent globally. The average internet minute has about 4 million Google search queries going on with Google. It has about 2.4 million pieces of Facebook content posted, and within the average internet minute, more than 72 hours of YouTube video are uploaded. That's every minute. The good news is you'll not run out of things to watch as the world we're going towards. And this is going to double every 2 years. It already has and will continue to do so. Now that's the good side of the average internet minute. Let's flip it and actually consider the other side as well, which is the average internet minute has 200 new threat vectors identified according to McAfee. Every 3 minutes, a new piece of advanced malware, meaning advanced persistent threat that's never been seen before, is developed, according to FireEye. According to Department of Energy, they receive more than 6,900 attacks a minute. According to Department of Defense, more than 85% of the emails they receive within an internet minute are actually spam. And on top of that, within the average internet minute, they're receiving 13,800 nefarious emails with a malicious payload. That's the other side of the internet minute. And remember, I'm giving this talk in about 15 minutes. So multiply it by 15 just to understand where we're at. And again, these stats will double every 2 years. This is a challenge that we all have as public service, and I'm intentionally using that because it is about the public. It is about public-private partnerships. It is about government professionals all working together because no one sector has the answers to these challenges. So, thing to think about, IPv4, Internet Protocol version 4, which is right now most of the world, although we're shifting to IPv6, is 2 to the 32, so essentially 4.3 billion addresses. If we put them in a beach ball, how big is IPv6? I'll give you a hint, it's 2 to 128th, but how big is that? Well, we're essentially going from the beach ball to the size of our sun. That is the world we're going into. That is the world in which we're going to have to figure out as public service how we're going to address moving forward. I briefly was in Australia and Taiwan recently for about 5 weeks, meeting with industry leaders as well as government leaders. And in both of the sectors, in Taiwan's industry, Taiwan's government, as well as Australia's, the question kept on coming up, who is going to protect your grandmother's car? Who is going to protect your grandmother's home? Who is going to let your grandmother know when her house might have been hacked? And how is she going to respond to it? I don't think it's going to be the military. Personal abuse, I don't even think it's going to be Homeland Security. This raises questions, however, as we as a nation as to who will that be. The other question that came up talking to industry leaders and government leaders is who will have the long-term motivation to address these challenges? They said that business, first and foremost, should be focused on profit, and that's good. Political leaders should be focused on getting reelected. I mean, that's what we reward. Who then will have the attention span to deal with these long-term problems because they cannot be solved in 3 months? They probably can't even be solved in a year. And they will only get exponentially harder with the questions they ask. So, this is where I talk about change agents, because I'm a big believer that anyone here can be a change agent. In fact, the fact that you're willing to come to a mobile app event on public service shows you are already one. But by change agent means you're willing to brave the way and step outside of the status quo. And we need to do that, understanding the narratives both within and cross narratives that we want to change, and even more importantly, that there's going to be friction. We often confuse management and leadership. Management is when you do what's expected of you, and we all need to do that to a degree. But leadership is when we step outside of those expectations. And when you step outside of expectations, someone's going to want you to get back in your box. There's going to be friction. And so you all will need to manage that as change agents and not get killed. In fact, the root of the word leadership is the word lead, which means to send unto death. I don't want any of you to send unto death, but I do want you to think about how you're going to manage the friction, because our exponential world will require change. So, taking a real quick risk, the remaining 7 minutes that I have, I'd like to actually step outside the status quo myself. How many people know the song Alphabet Aerobics? At least have someone. Excellent. I didn't know how many other people in the crowd would know. It's actually a rap. I'm not going to do that. Maybe after hours we could, but it's from A to Z. And I thought it would be worthwhile for the Internet of Everything to take a risk and try and do the Internet of Everything from A to Z. It's both a risk because, one, I can't rap, and two, any predictions of the future will probably be wrong. I'll probably be best 20% right. But that said, I'd like to at least put it forward so we can think about where we want to go together doing public service. So with that, the ABCs of the Internet of Everything begins with A is always on access. Accessibility, affordability, we all must address the digital divide. B is bring your own blank, be it earpieces, glasses, or watches. What we wear will be online. C is careful caution. Correlations cross connected data. Crucial we protect privacy. D is data deluge. Global data in 2020 should exceed all words humanity ever said. Exponential, everywhere, everyone, everything. From 14 billion devices now, in 5 years, 50 billion or more around our world. G is great opportunities, greater results, and government reinvented. H is how best to engage the public, how best with local governments, how best to help each other. It is important to include all perspectives and initiatives, including those who opt out of internet use. Just because data sources can be joined doesn't mean they should. Joint discussions with public on privacy by design. Key to keep in mind, the public will help regularly remind that we must serve benevolently and kind. Letting anyone reuse our code, licensed liberties will promote more trust, leverage future reuse across our efforts. Makers movement means more can manufacture mass fabricated tools affordably. Notions of what nations solely did, near future may change. New tech is about networks. Open source and security, open design and APIs, open choices for us all. Promoting positive change, perhaps the most perplexing part, legacy processes. Future depends on purposeful transformations. Quite simply, tech changes how we organize. Quite the question, how will we? R is raising questions regarding the future of security, rational online discussions, representative democracy. S is scale of change. Since it's not linear, it's exponential. Search by keywords, one day will no longer suffice. T is trying to tell what's important in the data deluge. Techniques, tools, and tactics transform how we work. Ultimately, it's about uses. Use by humans trusting humans, and use by machines trusting machines. V is volume, velocity, variety, volatility, veracity. With the coming future, we're going where we've never been. We will need new ways to adapt. X is exponential, experiments, to exchange expertise. Y is you matter more than ever. You can help transform our public service, and you can be positive change agents. Zeros and ones, it's much more than that. Zooming towards the future while remaining true to we the people. Thank you very much.
Just a quick intro on today's agenda. So for the next couple hours, you all will be visited by our judges. You're going to know that they're a judge because they have something purple on their badge that says judge. After that, we will have our closing keynote. We will introduce and thank our judges, and we will give out awards. So please enjoy yourself and make sure you pay attention to the judges. Thank you.